here we are, two hairy boys and a psycho. Got Miguel Ortiz, Dr. Miguel Ortiz from SARC, the Sonic Arts Research Centre in Queen's University in Belfast. Very important man, he's making this all run smoothly. He was also the guy who created all the audio that you heard in that, the special effects, any of the pieces that were going on, any of the generative audio material, which we'll go into more detail about in a wee while. Dr. Knapp heads up Music Sensors and Emotions Unit in the Sonic Arts Research Centre and co-owns Biocontrol Systems based in San Francisco. And then myself, I'm a film and digital media producer, co-owner of Filmtrip Productions based in Belfast. Also, unfortunately, the director, Nigel Bristow, couldn't be here today, but we have live satellite link-up, so you'll see a bit of a time lag.
Hi, I'm NG Bristow, and I directed the film you've just seen. I'm really sorry I can't be with you. Unfortunately, circumstances conspired against us. But thank you for taking part in our groundbreaking experiment, which I hope went well. I guess I'll find out from the guys with the beards there. Yeah. Orson Welles described directing as being like getting to play with the biggest train set a boy ever had. Well, working with emotional response cinema feels a bit like playing with a train set that keeps remaking itself in front of you. It's going to be fascinating to see where this leads us. It's going to be the start of a new cinematic thrill ride. Or maybe something a little bit more sinister, perhaps. Something like the Feelies, as prophesied by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World. I guess that's something you will discuss now. One of the things that we've discovered so far is that emotional response cinema is a bit like the dating process. The longer that the audience and the film have to get to know each other, the richer the experience. At the moment, we've just dipped our toe in the water with a short. Obviously, what we want to do is to take this further to a feature-length form, all serious offers considered. So now I'll hand you over to the safe hands of the guys with the beards. Thank you.
So you've just seen an emotional response film, but what actually was interactive? Part of the planning process, we sort of stepped out the different points that we wanted to do. The plot and narrative changes around certain points and beats in the story, the poker, the leg break, and various ending options. We also had various scores, a couple of different scores. So there's one without music, which we were terming the hyper-real version, which is actually really quite creepy because there is no audio, so it feels very claustrophobic. And then we had generative sounds, like the heartbeat stuff. All of this is real time. To explain more about this, I'm going to pass you over to Dr. Knapp to tell you more about this, and Dr. Miguel Ortiz.
Thanks, Gawain. Yeah, they wheel me into the room out of the cage for a few minutes of tech, and then they put me back in the cage. And I really don't like it that I don't have a beard. So what I wanted to do just very, very briefly is just, because I know a lot of you actually don't have the stuff on you right now, so I just thought I would describe a little bit about the tech and the iterations we've gone through for the past couple of years. The first thing is the idea is we're measuring things on your body like skin impedance, and heart rate. Heart rate you guys are all used to if you've ever done a treadmill and hold on to the thing and start running. At the same time, skin resistance gets you how much you're sweating. And we'll show you that a little bit more in a bit. These are the early generations that we did, early meaning 2 years ago. And we did some musical pieces using these. We thought, gee, what a great idea. We'll put it into the chairs, it'll be fantastic. People hated it, they were stuck to the chairs. So we made the next riff. Which looked disgusting, but actually they preferred it because at least you could then move your arms around and move freely, drink your Cokes and have little biscuits and stuff like that. Next. And then we have the iteration that's they're actually using in the back row today, which is 5 fingers, so little sensor on each one of 5 fingers. Again, measuring heart rate and Gawain skin response. And next. And this is actually where we are today. We have a new sensor that's on a single finger. It's going to be measuring 7 different signals, not just the signals that are back there. One of the keys to all of this is combining all of this streaming data from a large audience and bringing that data back together, doing pattern recognition. We're going to show you in just a little bit some simple signals, one at a time, but really the key is to actually bring all these things together and recognize patterns and changes of emotion within the audience. So this is our idea right now that we've begun to implement, which is instead of actually having the theater wired, we can also have the sensors connected directly to the mobile phone. So you'll download an app, you'll come in, and actually just the app will be streaming the data to our server, processing the data, controlling the projector as you saw today, and you'll have the true interactive experience. And as well, you can do this for gaming. The relationship, the emotional connection that you have with the film can also then be transferred to emotional connections then that you could have in a game environment as well, especially one that would relate back and forth between film and game. Okay. So what Miguel is going to do right now is he's actually going to take you through some of the signals and stuff. That's him with the beard in the upper right hand.
So I'm obviously sitting on the back of the cinema because I had to run everything and do like 2 jobs at once. So basically, this is a recording that we have here on my left. Does that work? And this is a control experiment we did at the Sonic Arts Research Center. And here we have the phasic galvanic skin response, which is kind of a direct impulse, like when you are suddenly stressed or scared or something. This is the tonic, which is kind of your overall level of engagement and stress over a larger period of time. And here there's the variability of the heart rate, how it goes up and down. I won't explain too much about what this actually means on this demonstration because it's a bit complex. But you can see how it will be going up and down all the time, meaning that there is a significant change. By the way, this is all the average of 6 people that we measured in the Sonic Arts Research Center. So if I actually play this back, we can see here a bit in advance how the level of tension is increasing across everyone in the room. And this is a direct result of, you know, the lone lady, this high-pitched sound. But as the whole scene is developing and settling, we also see how the baseline is increasing. And obviously heart rates are all over the place. So I'll stop that there and jump to the next example, which is the leg break. And we'll see something similar. So here we see how there's people kind of relaxing already from whatever happened next. But as we develop on the scene, we'll see this rise again. And we'll have the big spike when it is actually being hit. I'll stop this here. Those of you who really pay attention to detail will have noticed that there was a strong chord when she put the spade down, and that wasn't on the version we had today. I was kind of hoping it would, but these are some of the sort of things in regards of the music being real time, that we have multiple options to accentuate different parts of the film in different ways through sound, and that's you know what the way it's running. So this is the average of everything, and now we're going to look. This is the actual plots of all 6 individual people for the same scenes. So these are these big spike moments, and we can certainly see here how there are differences on personalities. We see here, those of you who can follow this blue line, for the first scene is the last one to actually react, and is the lowest reaction that we get from that person. However, on the second and third scenes, sorry, we didn't see the second, but here are the poker scene and the spade scene. We can see how this person was actually higher up on it was the first to react and to a higher degree. So the beauty of the system as we have it right now is that we are averaging all this data to get a general audience measurement. But at the same time, because we're getting everything as an individual signal, we can use this information if we decide to do so in different ways. And here, although there's several constraints, for example, in the music, but many of the actual chords in the string instruments that you heard today are actually directly linked to the signals. So I have, 4 instruments, and how it goes up or down in pitch is directly run through this after being filtered, so that the chords kind of make sense. But that's one of the possibilities that we have explored with this particular film. But obviously there are many others that we can do. So we're now going to do a real-time demonstration.
So what we thought would be fun to do is actually to get everybody in the back rows and actually display some of their signals and show it live and see actually what's happening in real time. So slowly, Miguel will bring up all the different signals. Right now we've got 9 people wired in the back row. We're just going to show 4 of them. And what you're seeing now is the ECG coming up. And so it's basically heavily filtered, but just simply looking at the different pulse rate that's coming through. So you can see the little pulses coming through. And then what we'll do now is slowly add the GSR.
The GSR is out of the range, unfortunately, for the display, but we can hear it.
Yep.
So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, so I'm going to bring them all up to form a chord, and we're going to do a big experiment that Dr. Knapp will explain.
What you try to do is try to puncture your eardrums. So what we're going to do is try to get you to, once you get all 4 set up, I want everybody in the back row. Do you have the other 2? You just want to do those 2?
No. I just lost my mouse for a second.
Okay. All right, everybody in the back row, take a really deep breath. Relax, slowly relax, and let your air out really slowly. We can't get you to calm down. You're all so excited. Everybody completely relaxed, almost ready to fall asleep. That's up to you guys. Well, there were subtle changes, but not a lot, except for when I moved. But the idea, again, was just a quick mapping of the, actually it sounded like somebody was like, we were mapping the pulsation, the tremolo of that to your actual GSR.
There was one person that did change, and this is one of the interesting things of this technology, that we can't actually fake it. I mean, you didn't relax there. You were all over the place during the film. That's how we got all the options that played. So just as a one last thing, we're hearing someone's heart here. And it stopped there.
Are you all right in the back room?
Take it up a little.
And we can hear here the different rhythms of the different rates of people. And we can see how actual discernible rhythmic patterns are being generated. And these are, again, things that we can use creatively as part of the film. In the film, what I did was, what the system did on this performance is that it selects whoever has the fastest heart rate. and that's what we heard when she falls down in the previous to last scene. So obviously, with a film of a different nature, we could have something that where these rhythms could actually be used during the screening to create different types of music. So we move ahead then.
Yeah. Okay. So, how did it really come about? Miguel and I had worked together on a short film that I produced a couple of years ago. And when the Sonic Arts Research Centre was actually built, I've been desperately keen to get in and actually use the space, this 360-degree audio space, this 48.1 surround sound system, and just do something. And the guys have been working on the emotional response stuff, and I was actually trying to do a 360-degree video and audio piece. It just became prohibitively expensive. And the guy said, well, what about trying this, doing it this way? And we are here now. There was a fund that the Arts Council of Northern Ireland had called the Creative Industries Innovations Fund, and we were lucky enough to get supported with that. So, really, the production considerations for this. Again, thank you. But obviously three. There's your scripting, there's your production, there's your post-production. For the scripting side of this, we were sort of trying to work out, not really knowing what we were going to get out of it, what we were going to produce, what sort of genre we should go for. And we decided on horror just as a pure safety net. How does horror work? It's boo moments and tension, so you're pretty certain you're going to be able to get an audience to react. Other genres we weren't sure what to do. We sort of toyed with doing something where the whole film was about people getting wired up, and thought that was maybe going just one step too far. But we did do audience tests before we did the final drafts of the scripts. We did audience tests with the likes of, I don't know how many of you know Father Ted, comedy. There was Drag Me to Hell, a horror film, and there was The Champ, amongst a couple others. And The Champ was fascinating. There was a big, stocky lad came, sat down front row, didn't say very much, very quiet, wired him up, and he wasn't really responding to their stuff until we hit The Champ. And I'm going to do a bit of a spoiler here, if you haven't seen it. There's a bit where at the very end, Champ dies, kid's in the place, he's running about crying, and the coach is there. And when the coach goes over and cries, your man spiked, it just went right up. We couldn't see him, he was right at the very front. You can guarantee he was sitting there choking up, you know. So off the back of these, then we did redrafts of the scripts. We came up with a few different variations of this, and it was important. We found that trying to do multiple scenes and multiple variations, you can very quickly water down your script. You can water down the story. You can end up with lots of crap, basically. So it took a lot of work to be able to work out threads that fitted, that didn't do damage to the overall film, no matter which path that it took. Production, obviously when you're doing multiples of things, you're obviously going to ramp up your production costs a bit and your time. This was a short film with a short film budget, and we were trying to squeeze in an awful lot. And the crew buckled themselves. They worked so hard for us to be able to make it happen. So it's obvious that if you're going to have variations and multiple variations of picture, you're going to end up ramping up your costs a bit. You just have to think shrewdly about what way you're actually going to do that. And then the post-production, you've got multiple variations. Again, in the process for this, you had multiple variations of audio. You were scoring. Miguel's head was bent. We were doing the real effects, then we were doing generative effects, then we were doing a score for this type of feeling, score for that kind of feeling. What did you want to do here? So it was like, it really was. The audio side of things was a bit of a head melter. The picture, once you actually got it in, you put it into your timeline, you cut all your variations, that was fine. Doing the audio to those was a bit of a minefield. So, where are we next? What are our plans? Over the 18 months that we were actually developing this whole biosuite, getting to here, and simultaneously we've been developing a feature film transmedia project called E8. 248-point geometric structure, the shape of the underlying mathematics of the universe. The Large Hadron Collider is not only solving grand scientific queries. The energy ripples are affecting 248 people around the planet, unlocking the sixth sense. The ability to see how the universe works, an experiment to create a better world. new reality is formed, it's unstable, it could reset. But some of the 248 who have experienced this new awareness, this new awe, this new understanding of the way the world works, they don't want their E8 moments to disappear. So using this ER technology, this motion response technology, for digital theatres, for mobile gameplay, for city-based events, we'll help audiences have their own E8 moments. Ian MacDonald is a very well-known sci-fi novelist. These are some of the books that he's written. If you're into sci-fi in any shape or form, I highly recommend it if you haven't read it. He's been nominated for and won multiple awards. It's just a pleasure to be working with him. He's created something very special for us with this. Very, very close to having our next draft of the feature script this week. Look forward to that when it arrives. The support that we've had here and the partners that we've got, we're in really good shape to be able to really maximise where we are now, both in the technology side and in the production side. We've had support from the Arts Council, Northern Ireland, and I Screen, European Media Fund, partnered up with Puregrass Films. If you know Puregrass, they did Beyond the Rave for the relaunch of Hammer House. They did the MSN series, Kirill. And then the lovely No Minds folks, Warren and Steve, along with Benham, to work with us on the transmedia side of stuff. So really, we've talked enough with you guys, I'd like to open this up to discussion, put in questions and answers. These are some of the responses that you'll get in this. There's a whole lot of polarizing response, from very, very cool to really, really creepy. Get out of my head, get out of my body, what are you doing? I don't want to go there. So for us, this is the first time we've tested this. So thank you very much for being here with that, firstly. But we'd like to talk now. So is there any questions?
Yeah, amazing test you guys are running. I was wondering, the baseline, are you guys planning on doing a longer baseline, getting a truer baseline, and then seeing how your results vary as opposed to just running in and doing it? I was just curious, because I've done usability and I was wondering what the response, like the difference response has been.
Okay. In a lot of the studies that we've been doing related to music research and having audiences attend performances and things like that, what we're finding actually is that the variations on the baseline are not huge. And so what we're trying to do, we have adaptive algorithms that we're working on to actually come in with a pre-existing baseline and then just adapting off of that over the course of in this case, the film itself, in the other case, in the course of the music. So we have a longer baseline in that we have all of the experimentation up to that point to set what we believe is a strong baseline. And the beauty, again, it can't be emphasized enough, when you have so many people, we only could bring enough in the back row, but when you have so many people, you really begin to have a beautiful variation in all the different possibilities. So the baseline itself is a wonderful average of all of these different changes, and that average doesn't seem in our studies to vary that much. So I think we'll be able to do that early on.
Two questions. First question, galvanic skin response, I thought couldn't differentiate between emotion, so that pleasure and stress would probably come up as quite similar reading, so that might skew the emotional response. And the second one is, can you talk a little bit about why, from an audience point of view, rather than other than novelty, what do you think it offers the cinematic experience?
Okay. You do your science question.
I should have worn the black, glasses with the little tape right here. The answer is no single signal, easy for me to say, no single signal is by itself an indicator of emotion. As a matter of fact, if this were a geek technology conference kind of thing, we would talk about physiological indicators of emotion, because obviously the sweat of the skin is a function of how much you're running up the stairs as well. So there's all of these other considerations. But the beauty of the audience situation, as again also referring to a lot of the work that we do with music, is you are stable, you are sitting there, And the only changes that are going to cause this to change are a function of cognitive and emotional change, or you know, flicking the sensor off the end of your fingertip. But absent that, all of the changes have to be caused by some sort of internal emotional change. Is it a direct correlation between, oh, high GSR is this, low GSR is that? No, absolutely not. Same way with heart rate, same way with skin temperature, same way with all the other things that we look at. That's why, probably not very clearly, but at the beginning I was saying it's really looking at patterns of change. And also the word change is important too. And when Miguel went through the signals, notice he wasn't describing, oh, look at this level, it's 500, but more look at the change that's happening in there. That change is inferring this change in internal state, which we're then using to infer change in emotional state.
From a creative point of view, we're just, there's
From an audience point of view.
from an audience point of view, I think that actually is both, it's a creative thing as well, because, you know, you go to a live performance of a gig, you're going to get a different performance every time. You don't slam the band for not doing exactly the same thing before, and you get a bit more of a buzz for it. You go to a cinema and you think that you've got something that could be completely unique to the group of you that are in there, and then because, as Miguel already stated, you could have it where we actually individualize stuff, so you can have it where the earbuds are like talking to you, and you're getting a whisper in your ear, but it's only you. And that's a personalised experience within a cinema group environment. I think, personally, I think that would be cool, but I don't know, it's not for everybody maybe. Don't know if that answered it. Any other questions?
It's that question, you may have just half answered it. It was just about fighting the law of averages. In a theater with only 9 of us, you know, we're scripting that, but the more sensors, the more you're going to have the law of averages, and there's somewhat of a vanilla turnout. And then the law of averages over the number of theaters, or even the number of theaters in a country, culturally, aren't you just going to end up with something somewhat vanilla?
Sort of a homogenization of whatever happens. But that comes down to the actual variables that you set and the people that are in there and what do you want to have happen, and it becomes more of an experience then. You can actually make it so it becomes an experience. You're not all going to the cinema to see the same film with a bunch of people together. You can individualize it, you can hyper-localize it, you can go from the cinema to the cinema. You can have an awful lot of fluidity and control over what you want your audience to feel, as well as allowing it to just be completely open and see what happens. Who knows?
Sorry, if I might add something to that. Someone earlier asked about getting the true baseline, and one of the nice things here is that we can choose at the beginning to either have a true baseline or not. And that's something that we discuss a lot in the sense of, okay, what are we doing at the beginning to get everyone on the same spot? And something that we can actually do is we can not normalize people. So when we have people coming into the theater, whatever the first measurements have to do with whatever they did right before the film started. So that can activate the first change as they walk in, and we have no control over that. We have the control on the variables of what can happen, but then we have all this baggage that they're bringing from outside, and that sets the first change, and then how they respond to that unfolds throughout the film. So that's something that we can do. I mean, for this one film, we wanted to have everything. Obviously, once you have specific content, you can't have all the possibilities at the same time. But yeah, just adding up to that.
When you have a layer of personalization, when it's specifically asked what you're carrying around to, you almost have personalized control over what response you want to give and how it should be weighted.
You could. There's no reason why not. That's conscious control rather than unconscious emotional sensation. So it depends on where you want to draw that line.
I also just one other experience in this domain, and the neat thing about these conversations and doing these things over and over again is this is really an entirely new domain, and a canvas where you paint on, and some things work and some things don't work. We did several of us. We did a performance in New York City 4 different times, and I've told this story a million times, but it was shocking to me, and it gets back to that question of this over-vanillization of things. We did the performance 4 times, one of which, I don't know if you remember, Hugh, but one of which was unbelievably synchronistic. And people for whatever reason, all spontaneously reported in this incredible emotional connection with the performance. Another one really fell flat. And so I think we all worry about that level 2, and you certainly, some of the things that Gawain and Miguel are pointing out of localizing it to individuals, of looking at baselines of the individual as they walk in. All of these things would be techniques, but also just again in our limited experiences of doing this, it seems that there is uniqueness to an audience, and I honestly, it's probably the only time today I'll leave the science world, but I honestly don't know why it's so unique and why it worked that one time in New York. And we did, again, 4, one was vanilla, one was fantastic, and the other 2 were kind of, in betweenish.
Sorry, I know there's a couple of jumping around here. I'm going to come back to you because this panel has hand up. And Nathan's actually had them up earlier. Go for it.
Sure. You showed that nice flow chart of the different possible paths through the film using different scenes. Can you talk a little bit about really what thresholds or what triggers you're using in the emotional responses to say, hey, we're going to take this path versus this path, A versus B versus C versus D, without revealing too much about the algorithm behind it? How are you actually making those decisions?
Well, for this one, we did a very unscientific decision-making process in which we were running it, watching it ourselves, and obviously watching it over and over again. And that's something that we really wanted to test because we want to encourage people to watch the same film on the cinema more than once and hopefully get a different experience each time. And it was a decision on how much were we affecting them, how were they following our assumptions on they're going to be stressed here, they're going to be relaxed here. And then just in function of that, just deciding, okay, this spike too high, do we want to just keep pressing it, or do we want to let them relax a bit? And for this film and the way we have it, I mean, we have all of that identified, and we just basically decided, okay, for this, let's do that, for that option, let's do that. And that seems to work. We've run it a couple of times with people, with audience experiments, and everyone seems to agree at least that the version they get to see is consistent within itself, which was one of the important things. Of course, there's more research to be done in that artistic process, and that was out of our time frame for this project. But it's one of the areas that are still open.
So you were effectively DJing the film, just as a music DJ.
But we set it up so that there was.
You're DJing the film.
Yeah.
You sort of go, if it goes up to there, well, then it'll go this way. If it doesn't, it'll go this way. It's that kind of thing. So it is all just being channeled into. You can set it up a lot more complexly. We'd have to lead ourselves.
Wondering if you'd experimented with automatic pattern recognition. Wekinator is one that I've used, and how successful was it? What were your experiences?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is has both temporal and width components to it. We're very familiar with Wekinator, and yes, there's absolutely, that's what I've been trying to emphasize. In doing something like this, it's nice to show the individual signals because you can kind of wiggle them and watch something change, but really it's the patterns of change that are much more interesting. And we're only going to, unlike Wekinator, where you just tilt things and okay, it's learned this thing and you're done. This is really getting into how do audiences react over time. We have a set of, as Gawain referred to, a set of test films that have been validated over the years, and we're using those in conjunction with, in this case, the new film, but again with very compressed time frames. But absolutely, this is about pattern recognition in time, pattern recognition in width across the sensors, and in width across the audience themselves.
It seems like a technology that's got loads of potential, but with narrative stuff, there are also certain issues. Like you were saying, some of the versions of the story have been better than others, and as a filmmaker, you're always trying to find better. And also, unless you watch it more than once, you're not going to really necessarily understand what effect you had. But you could escape those things if you were doing non-narrative stuff. Have you thought about or tried any non-narrative stuff where you could be more direct with the audience so they've got a connection with the feedback they're having and you're not
actually a conversation that we had leading up to this as to how much did we want that sort of feedback loop to be obvious, and how much did we want it to be to a degree hidden. And we wanted to be able to have, for this project, for what we were doing, we wanted to have a narrative film that people could enjoy, that we knew would have beats, story beats in it, in the genre range that would fit, and then we scripted what we needed with multiple variables within that. We did talk about leaving it a lot more open, and it is something we're looking at as another our next stage test project, is to have something that has multiples, almost like a Chinese whispers, where it allows lots of different variations. So yes, definitely it would be fascinating just to see what we come out of it.
It feels like it's kind of two audiences that when you're showing there's us and there's you, see it all at once, and can perceive what the difference is. But it's kind of interesting to join the double.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what we didn't want to do is run the same film a couple of times, which then why we end up doing the signals thing, so you can actually see, okay, here we are here, there's stuff coming through, and you did get a version. Didn't want to have you watch the same parts and go on like that. That was crap. These are useless.
But you also bring up an interesting point. I made this entirely wrong assumption. We did an experiment very recently, again with music, and we had a bunch of people listening to it, and a lot of people that listened to these pieces had never heard the piece before, and we got these interesting reactions. And then there was this expert who was just analyzing the crud out of this thing. And I don't know about you guys, but I just assumed if you've seen something more than once or heard it really new, that you'd probably have rather flat affect, that you better have, and instead, you know, with Michael Spitzer, all of a sudden you get these massive reactions and huge predictions, and it was, in hindsight, we kind of said, oh, I guess that makes sense, because you knew what was coming and you were kind of building to it internally. But again, all of these things are sort of surprising as to what actually happens. Oh, is there a pun in there somewhere?
I vote for 2 times, because knowing the ending lets you free to feel differently about it the second time.
Okay, yeah. See what you mean, and like, it basically validates what you're saying. You qualify what was different. But would that make you go back and see a film the second time? Would you go and see a film the second time if you knew that you want?
That's how I decided what the class A film.
And if it was a different outcome?
Yeah, well, but this short thing could
Might you be disappointed if it actually wasn't the same again?
Is that funny? We had exactly the same conversation. I mean, do you then have to make sure that somebody goes, I've seen it already, you're right, so type that one into the system. So you're ending up then, you get the secondary layer of information that's filtering almost. So those that are there, do you qualify the number of people then that are in the audience to do stuff, or do you just leave it open, just let it happen each time, and then get shouted at by the person going around, I saw that. You know, it's there's no right, no wrong.
Watching a second time, inevitably it comes to the film's identical.
Because you're predicting. Yeah.
So it's lack of an instantaneous feedback to how you are influencing the audience. The second viewing, that
Did you hear that?
Nope.
That if you're coming into it the second time, the signal's there. If you watched it, you know, it's almost ruling it out as being invalid, because therefore you're not enjoying it, you're predicting it then. But then it does feed back to what I was just saying. You know, if you're predicting it, there's a whole different physiological response going on, because you're actually then preempting, and then stuff could then change, and then therefore
we're not comparing. If it was just one person watching it once, it's having an impact. And you watch it again, you wonder whether it's
Well, adding to this, a sort of fail-safe thing that we have, and this comes back to the audio and music, which we know is one of the key elements of affecting how you feel about the film. The way a scene is presented musically, regardless of what the images actually tell, kind of gives you a hint of how you're supposed to see it, or let you have an interpretation of what you're seeing. And we have enough, I mean, the idea for this and why it was such a hard work to do is that we have enough variation on the audio that, you know, you can be presented the same image with a completely different emotional meaning. On this short film, we only have a couple of scenes that might have a different footage content, but the more the audio is autogenerative, you have more opportunities for variations on how that is presented. Gawain mentioned that one of the possibilities is actually no music at all, and it works in a way that is very creepy because you are kind of expecting the music to lead you. You are trying to get a cue. Who is the bad guy? Is it him? Is it her? You need kind of these ramps of emotion and then the release. And when you don't get that, it's like almost being there and seeing something that is happening and it's ridiculous and you kind of don't understand what's going on in the case of this particular film. So the more you have these, talking about the possibilities that we have, the music has a great opportunity to have a big impact on how you see the whole thing, even if the sequence of images ends up being the same.
But you still won't understand that unless you see it twice, because you won't know what you're judging against. It feels to me like if you take the input of the people and treat the whole thing like a musical performance, and they understand to some extent how they're influencing that feels like a really potentially really compelling experience for an audience. Whereas the things you're talking about now feel like a compelling experience for you guys. So not so much for me, because I don't know what I'm comparing against. I might just think you did the score film.
See if I'm running.
Yeah.